Why are you so hysterical?
Do you understand life? Do you?
When you watch a filmmaker's work, it can sometimes be easy to draw conclusions about who they are as a person. With, say, a Ken Loach film, you know that you're getting something about class politics, or with a Spike Lee film, you're getting something that is predominantly focused upon race. By and large, filmmakers project something of themselves onto their art, and the choices that their characters make or the moral codes that govern their films' universes are heavily informed by their own worldview. But then there are films like this.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
A lot has been said about The Room since its limited release in 2003. A cult phenomenon, the film is beloved by many film fans for its nonsensical plotting, production mistakes, and cringe-inducing dialogue.
Anyway, how is your sex life?
But whilst the film is littered with inconsistencies, there are certain themes and messages that appear repeatedly across its 99-minute runtime, which gives us an insight into director Tommy Wiseau's worldview. Upon rewatch, it becomes clear that Tommy Wiseau has a certain view of how life should be, and that it is the film's goal to impart that wisdom onto the audience. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to clarify that a lot of The Room's themes are bizarre, baffling, and in some instances deeply misogynistic. By talking about these themes, I'm not agreeing with any of them, nor am I endorsing them in any way, shape, or form. What I am trying to do is ask, if this film has any lessons to impart on us, what are they? And how do we go about understanding them? What can we learn about Tommy Wiseau's moral code from watching The Room? And in what way is the director trying to communicate to us a certain view of life? What is the message of The Room? The Room's production values are so cheap that at times it can often look like you're viewing the film on a mobile phone. But mobile phone videos don't always have to be awful. Just look at the awesome 3D graphics featured on Raid: Shadow Legends. It's the most ambitious and engrossing mobile RPG of 2019, with graphics and gameplay more in line with big budget console titles. Raid is also packed with all the hallmarks of a classic RPG. There are PvP battles, an amazing storyline, breathtaking set pieces, and hundreds of champions to collect and customise. You'll be spoiled for choice picking a favourite. Although, look at this guy, isn't he great? Look at him. It's definitely going to be huge, so if you start now, you'll have a huge advantage over other players. There's also an upcoming special tournament with insane prizes which you'll definitely want to check out. With all these features, you're probably expecting this to burn a hole in your wallet, but the best thing about Raid: Shadow Legends is that it is completely free. There is literally no excuse for you not to play this game, but in case you needed even more of an incentive, if you follow the link in our description, you'll not only be able to download Raid for free, but you'll also get 50,000 silver immediately, and a free epic champion courtesy of the development team. This is a deal so milky that it will have you saying,
You must be kidding, aren't you?
oh yeah, that, The Room, let's continue talking about that, I guess. So let's start with lesson number 1, follow the rules. The certain principle that governs The Room's internal logic is that by adhering to society's rules and logic, a person will be rewarded with happiness. Now, this isn't particularly controversial, but The Room presents this logic in a brutally simplistic fashion. The main character, Johnny, played by Tommy Wiseau of course, is our moral pinpoint, the character we are supposed to align ourselves with and whose plight we are supposed to feel empathy for. And the film wastes no time hammering home the idea that Johnny is a really, really nice guy. Just look how many save the cat moments he gets across the film's runtime. He pays for Denny's tuition and saves him from a drug dealer, Chris R. He offers Mike help when he falls over. He does the same for Peter when he also falls over. Apparently everyone just falls over constantly in this universe. It's like a weird kind of nightmare. I mean, even Lisa, the film's de facto villain, says this.
Johnny is very caring about the people in his life. And he gave Denny his own set of keys to our place.
Johnny is as straight-edged as protagonists come. He's a successful banker, never wants for anything, loves his friends and family, and doesn't drink, smoke, or do anything out of the ordinary. Moreover, Johnny's relationship with Lisa is a cacophony of romantic cliches, with Johnny regularly giving Lisa flowers, adorning their bed with rose petals, and buying Lisa's, beautiful red dress. Johnny sees relationships as exchanges of time. If a person gives their time to someone, they are entitled to that time back. If you buy someone a coffee, they are signing an invisible contract, which means they must buy you a coffee back. It's sort of a toxic version of Love Thy Neighbour, and as his relationship implodes, Johnny frequently uses references to time as a case for why Lisa should love him.
How could you do this to me? I gave you 7 years of my life.
This sentiment isn't just echoed by Johnny, as other characters also point out that Lisa and Johnny have been together for a long, long time.
Well, you've known him for over 5 years.
You two have been together forever.
Moreover, Wiseau seems to view stability as more important than passion in relationships. Just look at this exchange between Lisa and her mother.
He supports you. He provides for you, and darling, you can't support yourself.
In many senses, the film is articulating that a bland, dispassionate romance that fulfills all the hallmark cliches is preferable to a kind of passion that Mark and Lisa have. Because Johnny does so much for Lisa, it is Lisa's moral obligation to continue to be in love with him, and even if she doesn't, she should stick around because he can give her security and How romantic. It seems clear that Wiseau believes that women owe you something for the time you pay them, which brings me to lesson number 2. Women are terrible. As our central female character, Lisa, the film's antagonist, is our best look into how Wiseau regards women, and for the vast majority of the film she is portrayed as a soulless, manipulative sociopath. Lisa manipulates Johnny constantly, using him to gain access to things she wants out of life. And multiple characters refer to Lisa in a highly negative fashion.
She's a sociopath. She only cares about herself. She can't love anyone.
You're being so manipulative.
How can you do this? You make me sick.
In many senses, Lisa is the antithesis of Johnny, who, as we have established already, is a really, really nice guy. Whereas Johnny is selfless and willing to do anything for those around him, Lisa is only motivated by herself and her need to survive. Likewise, whilst Johnny is dependable and consistent, Lisa acts sporadically and frequently contradicts herself. The view of women as contradictory and confusing is one that Wiseau pushes repeatedly, with numerous characters remarking on women being unpredictable creatures who rarely act rationally.
I don't understand women. Do you, Peter?
What man does?
Sometimes they're just too smart. Sometimes they're flat out stupid.
Women change their minds all the time.
Moreover, it is women that are seen to cause conflict and foot the blame for many of the problems that befall the film's characters. Lisa, an object of lust for many of the film's characters, drives a temporary wedge between Denny and Johnny simply for existing.
She's beautiful. She looks great in a red dress. I think I'm in love with her.
She gives Denny no signals whatsoever that she is interested in him, and yet it is her very presence that solicits Denny to contemplate betraying his friend. Lisa also foots the sole blame for her affair with Mark numerous times, with the film positioning Lisa as the aggressor, whilst Mark is portrayed as some sort of victim. Just watch this reaction after they first have sex.
Why did you do this to me?
At the film's climax, with Johnny having killed himself, wow. It is Lisa who is blamed by Mark for her actions, and Mark is able to walk away from the whole affair blame-free.
Tramp. You killed him. You're the cause of all of this.
It is Lisa who takes the fall, Lisa who is hated, and Lisa who is apparently to blame. The concerns of women are sidelined in this film to a point where even domestic abuse is shrugged off with a laugh.
I used to know a girl. She had a dozen guys. One of them found out about it, beat her up so bad she ended up in a hospital on Guerrero Street.
What a story, Mark.
And when Lisa tells her mum that Johnny hits her, this is her response.
Johnny doesn't drink.
In spite of her daughter being hit, the idea of Johnny drinking seems the more shocking action, and this brings us to lesson number 3. Drugs are bad. As we've established already, The Room is a pretty conservative film in its politics. It asks people to conform to society's norms, views the nuclear family as the ultimate goal, and values qualities such as stability over spontaneity. In line with this, it is a film which shows us an intolerance towards drugs, which Wiseau appears to view as some sort of ultimate social evil. In one of the film's tensest scenes, we see Denny confronted by a sadistic drug dealer, Chris R. I wonder what the R stands for. Maybe it's Russo. Oh, Endgame is so close. After Chris R is apprehended by Johnny and Mark, Denny is left on the roof with Claudette and Lisa, who question him on his relationship with drugs. The scene builds increasingly hysterical as Lisa and Claudette pressure Denny into revealing his connection to Chris R, until Lisa screams, "What the hell is wrong with you?" This scene is then immediately mirrored as Johnny returns and chastises Denny.
Why did you do this? You know better, right? Why?
That this has nothing to do with the overarching plot demonstrates that Wiseau is concerned enough about drugs as an issue to derail the entire narrative of his own movie to ensure that this message is hammered home to the audience. This anti-drug sentiment returns when Peter confronts Mark over his affair with Lisa, which causes Mark to do this.
What are you, nuts?
In both of these scenes, characters are shown to behave erratically and unpredictably when drugs enter their lives, and this is also reflected in the scene involving Johnny drinking. Whilst it is established early on that one of Johnny's many virtues is that he doesn't drink, the one night he does, chaos ensues. This lapse into alcohol provides the catalyst through which Lisa is able to begin her manipulation of him and ultimately leads to his downfall. It's a proper tragic, epic story. Honestly, you need to go check it out if you haven't already. It's not just drugs which causes characters to behave erratically, however. however, as Wiseau seems to view the world as a place where random chaos prevails, which leads us to lesson number 4. People are crazy. To be honest, the fundamental principle that underpins Tommy Wiseau's worldview is that people don't often act consistently or rationally. They do things because they want to, and often they contradict themselves. Several characters point this out across the film, such as Mark.
People are very strange these days.
Or Peter.
People are people. Sometimes they just can't see their own faults.
And it's fitting that a film filled with so many plot inconsistencies and contradictory character moments would choose to advocate such a philosophy. In one of the film's confusing scenes, we see Mike tell Johnny about an incident, or should we say,
A tragedy.
that occurs earlier in the film involving his underwear. After Mike explains the logistics of his complex mission to retrieve his underwear from Johnny's house, Johnny pauses and remarks,
That's life.
"It's fitting that an incident as bizarre as this can be explained away as one of those little things." Let's not forget that Mike's primary role in the room is as Johnny's friend who uses his apartment to make out with his girlfriend. That Johnny never questions this or sees it as anything out of the ordinary is telling of how Wiseau views life as a seeming random spool of unpredictability.
Well, sometimes people do crazy things, right? Human behavior.
The idea that life itself is a cacophony of random chaos is further iterated by the character of Peter, who as a psychologist represents the character with seemingly the deepest understanding of human behaviour. Peter believes that life is complicated, so much so that he says the exact same thing twice.
Sometimes life gets complicated.
Sometimes life can get complicated.
Twice. For Tommy Wiseau, people do not have to behave consistently, nor do their actions necessarily have to have any formal logic. It allows a character like Denny to say something like this.
It's about Lisa. I feel like I want to kiss her and tell her that I love her.
Before moments later changing his mind and saying this.
What about Elizabeth, huh?
I love her.
In many ways, it is a shame that Wiseau was unable to produce some of the more fantastical elements from the original shooting script, which would have hammered home this idea that people can surprise you. When the film was first set to shoot, a subplot was present which would have seen Johnny be revealed as a vampire who drove a flying car and used it to fight off Denny's tormentor, Chris R. I'm not f***ing kidding you. Unfortunately, this sequence was deemed impossible to film due to budgetary constraints and the idea was scrapped. Perhaps it would be fitting to describe the scene in which Claudette reveals her cancer to Lisa, who barely reacts, as a subtle nod to Albert Camus' influential novel The Stranger, and a showcase for Wiseau's embrace of existentialist philosophy. But let's be real, this film's plotting is all over the place, and the likelihood is that Wiseau just doesn't know how to tie a plot together, or write characters, or know how to make a movie. Maybe that's mean, he's done more than I've ever done. Viewing The Room as an insight into its creator's mind is inherently problematic when the film in question is littered with so many inconsistencies. Because the film is so incoherent, it is often difficult to break down exactly what Wiseau is trying to say. But if you look closer, it becomes clear that Wiseau does have some rigid moral codes, which he is trying to impart onto the viewer. And whilst all of these rules are deeply bizarre, it's worth keeping in mind that when watching any film, it is ultimately a means by which to communicate a message. Even if that message is a little muddled, even if that message may or may not be about a vampire who drives a flying car. What? So, we didn't think we'd be doing this, but someone has actually donated $100, which is incredible.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Chike.
Honestly, that's awesome. You are, as we said in our Patreon video, literally keeping the lights on. So, no, but seriously, thank you very much. And,
yeah, we're just sort of in shock, aren't we?
Full Fat Videos is going to strange new places. Full Fat Videos just got upgraded, and along with that, we're upgrading our Patreon with new tiers and rewards just for you. Patreon could really help us make Full Fat Videos self-sustaining, and it'll allow us to make better videos and better content for you. For just $1 a month, you'd be helping us out a great deal already, which is why we thank you at the end of every video. Not to mention you'd get exclusive access to Full Fat Milk Posting, a Facebook group where you can talk to us about movies, TV and games, as well as some memes. We like a bit of memes.
For $3, you'll get access to everything from the previous tiers, but you'll also get the chance to watch our videos one day early, as well as get access to exclusive scripts and bloopers.
For just $5 a month, you'll get access to everything from all the other tiers, as well as exclusive access to ask the questions for our monthly Q&As.
And that's not all. For just $10, you'll get access to all of the above, as well as an exclusive commentary track picked by you.
For $100, I mean, you'd be keeping the lights on, so we'd really appreciate it, and we'd probably thank you at the end of every video on camera. You'd be really helping us in any way, shape or form if you could consider contributing to our Patreon. We love making this stuff for you guys, and we'd love to keep making more of it. So thank you, and thank you for watching. We're off to go make some more of that juicy content. We'll see you next time. Stay milky.